Quite some time ago, I covered the topic in Red Dead Redemption 2, putting forward ideas of how the treacherous character of Micah Bell was betraying the gang from the very beginning of the narrative, if not before. But after revising the content, I came to realise that there were some pretty important details that I had missed. So with this new or missed information being brought to light, and at the risk of rehashing old content, I felt a revamp of the original video was necessary to add weight to the original theory. So as confessed by Agent Milton of the Pinkerton Detective Agency, we are all fully aware that Micah Bell was working alongside the agency following the gang's escape from the island of Guam in Chapter 5 of the title. But in today's revisit of the subject, we'll be emphasising on how his betrayal was already in the works in the months prior to this, as we divulge into the telltale signs that may have gone unnoticed by some gamers, including myself. Welcome to the video. You're listening to Phil of Philby Gaming. If you enjoy the following, be sure to hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, and share with those you feel may enjoy content such as this. Without further delay, and please be aware of major spoilers for those who have yet to complete this title, let's begin. Micah Bell's betrayal of the Van der Linde gang revisited. So let's start at the beginning, with a brief look at the history of Micah Bell, as well as his induction into the Van der Linde family. Micah Bell, officially Micah Bell III, was born around 1860 to Micah Bell Jr., a ruthless and petty outlaw. The life of crime was common in this family, with Micah's grandfather also being an outlaw. When he was 17 in 1877, he and his father became wanted by the law for the brutal double homicide of Roscoe and Jean Briggs, a pair of homesteaders whom Micah and his father had sought employment from, who were hung from the rafters with their throats slit following a robbery on the duo. Micah was his father's partner in crime throughout his upbringing, also briefly involving his brother Amos for a short spell. Micah and his father would later have a falling out with Amos, who, by 1899, is repentant of his actions and has relocated to California with his wife and daughters, all the while making it clear to Micah and their father that he wishes for no contact with them, threatening to kill them if they came anywhere near him or his family. It's told that Micah's father had attempted to kill Amos during their fallout, but the details are minimal. Micah grew up around violence. He knew no different. This is where his survival instincts kick in, as we often hear him spout. Following the break-in formation of the Bell family, Micah continued on to form his own posse of outlaws. The group wasn't large, and we're aware of a few of the members: Cleet, Joe, and Norman. At one point, the group would attempt a bank robbery somewhere in the southern regions, although it's unspecified where. The heist was a failure, leading to our first speculation of his betraying ways. Why was Micah, Cleet, Joe, and Norman spared prison time? Did they come to some sort of agreement with the local law and turn state? Did they give information to the authorities, or potentially turn in some unseen gang members? Or was there something more? It's skepticised that Micah in particular was spared jail time in exchange for working alongside the local authorities. It could be perceived that he was sent to track down a wanted outlaw by the name of Dutch Van der Linde in exchange for his freedom. This is further emphasised by the fact that Micah carries around with him an outdated bounty poster for Dutch. Some gang members do keep memorabilia such as this concerning previous heists of their own, but why would Micah Bell keep Dutch's one on his person? It doesn't quite add up. It's also often thought that upon discovering Dutch at the tavern, in which he saved him from the locals who intended to ambush Dutch, who was trying to sell off stolen gold, that Micah saw a potential financial opportunity by befriending Dutch, and may have wished to use this to gain a bunch of cash before turning the leader over to the police force. Following the tavern incident, Dutch welcomed Micah with open arms into the Van der Linde gang, making him the newest member in the year of 1898, followed only by Sadie Adler and Kieran Duffy. Fast forward around 6 months later, the Van der Linde gang find themselves scouting the town of Blackwater. Co-founder and lead gunman Hosea Matthews and Arthur Morgan respectively had an operation going in the town, which they considered to be easily accomplished. But Dutch Van der Linde, of whom Micah Bell had the ear of, was convinced to pursue a ferry carrying payroll instead. As later described by Javier Escuela, the ferry heist got off to a good start, but it was soon raining Pinkertons. Several were slain or captured during the infamous heist. Slain were Davy Callender and Jenny Kirk. Captured was Mac Callender, Davy's brother, and Sean Maguire. It's strongly believed that due to the incredibly speedy response from the Pinkerton Detective Agency, that someone in the gang had let slip about the ferry job, and due to Micah's suspected history of turning informant, it was rumoured to be him. As the gang fled north to the snow-covered mountains of Amberino, Micah, alongside John Marston, are sent on ahead to scout for anyone potentially following them. This is where our next pocketed theory comes in. Micah and John become separated at some point, with Micah blaming the blizzard. But was it the blizzard, or did Micah intentionally abandon John in hopes that due to the incredibly tough weather and terrain, he wouldn't last too long out there? This is emphasised as Dutch and Arthur are reunited with Micah, whom isn't too far from the camp, as opposed to John, who's quite some distance and in a bad way, just the way Micah possibly intended. But why would he do this? Simple. Micah preferred smaller groups, feeling that with too many mouths to feed, there was less profit to be had. He says near as much a little later in the title during a smaller heist in Chapter 3, when discussing the benefit of cutting away weaker members of the gang. There's also a small detail during their conversation between the trio that some may not have realised. This stems from Dutch informing Micah that Davy Callender didn't make it. Micah responds by saying it's too bad that both the Callender boys didn't make it, as they were good fighters. Mac, Davy's brother, at this very point is still considered to be alive. Did Micah know something that the others didn't? Why else would he refer to Mac in a past tense? We also have the fact that Micah just happened to stumble across an O'Driscoll camp, formerly the home of Sadie and Jake Adler. This is a recurring theme through our time in the world of Red Dead Redemption 2. Wherever the gang go, the rivaling O'Driscolls always seem to be near. Is this because Micah is staying in close contact with them? It's rumoured that Micah may have been working alongside Colm O'Driscoll in bringing down the top men of the Van der Lin's gang. Concerning the hidden Blackwater money, Micah is constantly obsessed about it, often requesting Dutch to reveal the location of the funding so he can go and collect. It's strongly believed that Micah wanted to cut and run with the money and reveal the location of the Van der Lin gang to the local authorities following this. His plan all along. As the snow begins to thaw, aiding the escape of the gang to warmer climates, Micah is once again sent out ahead to scout for any of the law following them. This time he's accompanied by Lenny Summers, the youngest member of the Van der Lin's gang. We learn after a short while, when Lenny returned to camp alone, that Micah, during their travels, became deflective when it came to Lenny's questioning as the pair continued to ride further west than expected. But what intentions would Micah have for travelling this far away? Referring back to his potential affiliation with Colm O'Driscoll, let us not forget that the rivaling faction have taken over Hanging Dog Ranch, a plot of land pretty close to the town of Strawberry where Micah and Lenny ended up. Was he trying to reconnect with Colm, making the gang aware of the new location of Dutch and the boys? An incident occurred whilst in Strawberry, where it was revealed that Micah had met up with a former friend by the name of Skinny, or Norman, amongst a few other individuals. After several rounds of drinks, an argument broke out, leading to Micah killing an unnamed individual, landing him some jail time in the town as he awaited a hanging. His cellmate, an O'Driscoll. Micah would later claim to Arthur that said O'Driscoll had spilled information concerning a stagecoach robbery. But why would the O'Driscoll gang member spill anything like that to a stranger? That is, unless he knew Micah Bell personally. Upon learning of the imprisonment, Dutch sends a reluctant Arthur to the rescue, and upon the breach, the first thing Micah does is kill that same O'Driscoll. What reasoning would he have to do this other than to keep his cover as an undercover O'Driscoll gang member? There's also the fact that whereas Micah and Arthur, during their escape, could have easily hopped on their horses and fled, Micah chose to shoot up the entire town, all the while shouting both Arthur's first and last name constantly, potentially in the earshot of any cowering survivors of the massacre, who would remember this information to pass on to the authorities. His excuse for tearing up the entire town? He wanted his precious guns back. But was that really the reason, or was it to silence his former gang associate, Skinny, as well as the man's wife, to ensure his cover remained? This emphasises Micah's willingness to betray his fellow outlaws, as what was potentially proven sometime prior during the failed bank robbery in the south, where he was believed to have turned state on the gang. We also have the fact that Micah uses the excuse of not returning to Dutch van der Linde immediately, stating he can't because Dutch may be upset with him, so he separates himself from Arthur. This has led players to believe, following Micah's obsession with ensuring Arthur's name is heard throughout the town, that it may assist the authorities in pursuing Arthur instead of himself. He asks Arthur to later rejoin him at a small camp just outside of the town. Was this to test if Arthur had been captured or killed? We also have the stagecoach robbery itself, the one that Micah learned of during his time in the cell. He knows that he needs a worthwhile apology gift for Dutch and sees the stagecoach as suitable. Now, although he may be associated with the O'Driscolls, he's weighing up his options. Which, at this moment in time, is more important? He believes that returning to the Van der Linde gang could be more crucial. What he didn't bank on was the O'Driscoll ambush, so he did what he felt was necessary, kill any and all O'Driscolls to maintain his cover, something of which he plans to rectify with Colm a little later on. Later in this chapter, following Micah's return to the main camp, several of the top guys head out on a pre-planned train heist, and although Micah is not physically involved in the heist, he may have had a hand in this, on the side of the law. The heist, although considered successful, is very quickly ambushed by the local law. All 4 members involved question as to whether this was a setup. This is further proven in a newspaper article in which the local law claims that they had an informant. This is how they were aware of the planned robbery. But if the informant was Micah, many would ask what he would benefit from this. Well, let's think for a moment. Those that were active on the train heist were Arthur Morgan, Sean Maguire, John Marston and Charles Smith, 4 of the top gunmen in the gang. Was Micah trying to solidify his placement as the next lead man to Dutch? Was he trying to eliminate via a capture or killing of all 4 in one go? As the Pinkertons close in on the Van der Linde gang towards the end of chapter 2, Dutch understands it's time to relocate. He once again sends Micah out, this time to find a new camp. Micah chooses a location in the south known as Dewberry Creek. As Arthur and Charles head out to inspect the potential location, they soon come to realise that it's not suitable at all. The area is very open, and as stated, wouldn't be great during times of bad weather. Now Micah is experienced when it comes to evading the law and being on the run, so why would he choose such an unsuitable location for the entire gang? Some may draw to the conclusion that he purposely chose this spot as it couldn't be defended very well from attacking rivals, whether it be the O'Driscolls or the law. Just look at the openness of it, look at the woodland surrounding the place. It provides perfect concealment for those wishing to ambush. Was this Micah's intention, to leave the gang vulnerable in hopes of having many of them taken out? Later in chapter 3, Pearson and Micah approach Dutch and Arthur with news that Colm O'Driscoll wishes to parley. He wants to end the feud between the 2 factions once and for all. This is very out of character for Micah. He's a hothead who loves a fight. Why all of a sudden the change of heart for a gang he doesn't really care about? He almost seems obsessed to make this meet happen, as if he has another agenda on the cards. He insists that Arthur watch over the meet from a distance to protect both himself and Dutch, and as we soon learn, the deal was a setup. Colm O'Driscoll informs Arthur that he's kidnapped him, believing that Dutch and the boys will launch a rescue attempt, and in doing so will walk straight into an ambush by the Pinkertons. Now Arthur was pretty well hidden, but the O'Driscoll gang member knew exactly where to find him. Only 3 people knew of Arthur's location: Arthur, Dutch and Micah. And let's not forget, it was Micah's idea to where Arthur should position himself. This alone may have been Micah's way of paying back Colm for the stagecoach robbery. Following the escape from his imprisonment, Arthur returns to camp. Look at the subtle clues in Micah's expressions during this. It's an expression of worry. He didn't expect Arthur to make it back alive. Now he's worried about exactly what Colm may have told him. He has no love nor loyalty to the gang he runs with. We see this time and time again as he mocks Arthur during his final days, as well as his cold approach upon witnessing the death of Sean Maguire, where he mocks Arthur even further. During the latter stages of chapter 4, when young Jack is kidnapped by the Braithwaite family, as several men step forward to support Dutch and John, Micah doesn't volunteer. For a guy who loves a fight, he surely missed a good opportunity there. This further emphasises his disloyalty and nonchalant attitude towards those that surround him. Following this, as the gang return to camp empty-handed, they are soon greeted by Pinkerton detective agents Ross and Milton. Micah was tasked with watching over the camp during this time, so how did he not notice the two men searching close by? Or did he inform the two agents that the rest of the gang will be returning soon? There's a couple of things to take note of during this scene, which actually can play out two separate ways. In the first instance, whilst Milton confronts Dutch van der Linde, standing smack in the middle of the posse of outlaws, Micah disengages himself and stands afar up against a tree. He seems to want no involvement. And in the alternate version, when the outlaws cock their weapons to intimidate the Pinkertons, Micah follows suit, but soon lowers his weapon after Milton promises to return with 50 men. It's as if he cemented his choice right there. So what may be unknown to some is that the Pinkerton Detective Agency was and still is a real thing. During this era, it wouldn't be uncommon that local law enforcement would hire the detectives for support in the more complex cases. This was also actioned by the rich too, such as we see with Leviticus Cornwall. It is believed that Micah was working alongside John Lee Law first, before being later recruited by the agents after they learn of his treacherous mannerisms. Fast forward quite a bit and we find ourselves at the heist of the Lemoyne National Bank in the city of Saint-Denis. Every single heist member on that day wore a similar outfit, everyone except Micah Bell. Micah wore a bright white suit, as opposed to everyone in more darker shades. Now why would he do this? As surely it would make him stand out if things turned sour. Well, maybe that was the plan. Working alongside the local law and knowing that he may have ratted out the bank heist crew, he wanted to ensure that during this ferocious firefight, the law knew exactly which person not to fire upon. This goes back to the theory that Micah wanted all of the top gunmen out of the picture as he pursued to take over the gang himself. We could also speculate that Micah was aware of the location of Hosea Matthews, who was several blocks away setting an explosive as a distraction. There's actually a cut mission in the title where Micah would help Hosea set this up ready. This expands this thought. Micah, knowing that the law would kill Hosea, sending Dutch into a downward spiral, wished to use this to his advantage. Following the bank heist, a few of the surviving members of the Van der Linde gang end up on the island of Guam, just off the coast of Cuba. Upon this island, Micah continues to show his lack of empathy for the faction, even after the tragedy in Saint-Denis. He bickers with the others, especially Arthur, and acts childishly. It's at this point he's 100% mentally checked out from the gang and is now forming his own path. Although Guam doesn't play a predominant role in this theory, we later learn that as the gang return, the law picked up Micah and coerced him into turning fully. And considering this seemed to be on his agenda all along, this wouldn't have taken much convincing. He would continue on with the gang for the foreseeable future by remaining in Dutch's ear, sending others out on dangerous missions instead of himself, bringing his old gangmates in and seizing control of the Van der Linde posse of outlaws. For those who have completed the main narrative, we all know this tale and how it ends. This video was intended to outline Micah's behaviours prior to the time of which we learn he was officially working with the Pinkertons. So let me know in the comment section your thoughts on this. Was Micah intending to betray the gang the entire time? As always, if you enjoyed what you saw today, you all know what to do, and if you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. Thank you all for watching. You've been listening to Phil of Philby Gaming, and I'll see you in the next video.